Let's welcome in our panel now. Joining us is the director of the Center for Economic Opportunity at the Independent Women's Forum, Patrice Lee-Onwuka. She's also a Newsmax columnist. Jack Brewer is back with us, a retired NFL captain and the CEO of the Brewer Group. And also with us, Republican strategist Bobby Eberle. He is the host of the 13-Minute News Hour. Great to have everyone with us.
Good to see you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, Patrice, first question, why do you think the Ahmaud Arbery case has not got the same kind of media coverage as the Kyle Rittenhouse case? I mean, I feel like I've talked so much about Joy Reid in the last few days. I don't watch her show. I don't know if she's covered this, but it's certainly not getting the traction that her coverage of the Rittenhouse trial is getting.
It's a good question. So good to see you and everybody here today. I mean, I think what's interesting, the difference between these two cases is the narrative that I think the media has wanted to create around Kyle Rittenhouse compared to the more clear-cut case in the Ahmaud Arbery situation. I mean, I think there's just this rush to paint gun-owning young white males, frankly, in America as somehow terrorists, and Kyle Rittenhouse being the poster boy for that. The facts are coming out, though, thank goodness, in this case, where we're seeing that many of the distortions that we've seen heard coming from news media outlets and commentators about this young man and about the circumstances of the case don't support the larger narrative that they've wanted to create. The Ahmaud Arbery case, though, is a very different situation, and I think it's been harder for them to paint or kind of create the kind of outrage that they were looking for. The left has tried to look for with that case. So, I think what we're hearing and seeing is a really kind of a push to ensure that there is so much fear and worry about how Kyle Rittenhouse is treated, and the jury catches that and holds him accountable, even if it's not, even if the defense, the case itself, the facts in the case don't support him going to jail.
One of the things, Jack, we talk so often about is due process, and you got to have good prosecutors, good defense attorneys to actually ensure due process. And, where is the outrage? This prosecutor down in Brunswick, Georgia, she showed favoritism to the defendants. These charges probably would have come a lot sooner. I know you've worked so hard on the issue of criminal justice reform, and when the community doesn't feel like they can get a fair shot, either from the prosecution or from the investigation, I mean, that does not help our criminal justice system. It looks like we've got some serious issues, not with the current prosecutor because they've replaced the old one, but with the old prosecution of the case down in Ahmaud Arbery's situation.
You're so right, and it really shows what the left's focus really is. They talk about criminal justice reform and giving people fair opportunities when they go in the criminal justice system, but they're really saying they only want to fight when they can make it into a racial issue or a political issue. And so because we have a young white boy who's facing murder charges, now all of a sudden it doesn't matter what the criminal justice system does, when in fact there's so many that have had these same issues happen to them. And so it just really shows their hypocrisy, and it's sad because ultimately you're going to hurt everyone. And I think this is one of those times in America where we really get to see people for who they are. And the reason why, we have all these issues is because we see color so much. Instead of just fighting for right and wrong, all of a sudden it has to be black and white. And so that's revealed in front of the nation. And you talk about the Ahmaud Arbery case, same situation. Why isn't the media covering this case when you have one guy who blatantly chased down this black man running? You'd think the media would be all over that. But no, they'd rather focus on creating their villain in this young boy, Kyle Rittenhouse. And I'll say it, I hope he ggets acquitted because, clearly there was a self-defense here. You're talking about him shooting at people with.
Yeah.
You wonder what would have happened if Ahmaud Arbery would have been carrying a weapon as well, how he would have protected himself. I have to ask that question. Guys, I just want to jump in real quick. We've got some developing news here from inside the courtroom. We were just being told now that Judge Bruce Schroeder has banned MSNBC from the courthouse following a mystery person who apparently was observed following a bus on Wednesday that transports the jury to and from the Kenosha County Courthouse and claiming to have been with NBC. That person's now been tracked down by police. So Judge Schroeder apparently banning MSNBC from the courthouse. Okay, well, we'll leave that aside. I want to talk, though, about one, I think, positive development here. You guys might remember Eric Garner, who was killed in that incident with police in Staten Island over the cigarettes. His son now has come out in a public statement blasting a Black Lives Matter leader, Hank Newsom, for threatening riots, fire, and bloodshed if Mayor-elect Eric Adams revives the undercover unit, the anti-gun efforts, calling it an insult to my family and to the movement at large. You know, Bobby, this is what we need more of. There's no excuse for violence here, and what we've seen historically is the way to really push back against the stuff you don't like is nonviolent civil disobedience.
Well, absolutely right. And John, this goes back to your initial question about why the Arbery case isn't getting as much attention. It's because the left has gone all in on the Rittenhouse case. And the main reason why, if you recall, Kenosha, site of a major race riot, right? BLM, Antifa, all there. If people like Kyle Rittenhouse can exercise their Second Amendment rights and their right to self-defense, that's a check against this violence run amok in these riots, in looting. The left expects everybody to just back down, not investigate, as you said with this guy, the New York Post story, and just do nothing. But if concerned citizens actually defend themselves and fight back, when it's clear legislators and police officers and government officials in these towns, these mayors, these city officials do nothing, if the people take control, that's bad news for BLM, and that's exactly why they're pushing so hard.
Yeah, you know, every time a Republican says something, every other Republican has to condemn it. But where's the condemnation for the folks, you know, fomenting violence in Kenosha, Wisconsin? Where are the elected officials doing what Eric Garner Jr. is doing here, saying, you know, there's no need for bloodshed, fire, and riots. That's not going to solve anything. All right, panel, come back. Patrice, Jack, and Bobby will be coming back in the next hour. We have plenty more to talk about.
See, that's the problem with America. Everything is so binary. Everything that the red team doesn't like goes in the blue bin, and vice versa. So, you know, every Democratic politician has to wear on his sleeve every silly, stupid, woke thing that the fringe left does. And the red team has to wear kids in cages and, you know, lock her up and all that kind of stuff.
Are things getting too binary? Bill Maher there on CNN Speaking the Truth. Let's welcome back our panel. Back with us again, Patrice Lee Onwuka, Jack Brewer, and Bobby. Great to have everyone back with us again. Just wanted to get everyone's take on what Bill Maher said. Patrice, first with you.
Oh, I thought Bill was really thoughtful. And I think he's that voice of clarity that's needed right now, particularly coming from a side that should easily want to cancel him. He could sit out the debates entirely and not bring some real perception, real thoughtfulness to the conversation and say, hey, our side, we need to stop with the woke jokes and the ridiculous canceling of everything. And we need to recognize that everything is not binary, as he said. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people in mainstream media who are either motivated by profit, meaning it's better to separate people into camps and then you can exploit them and feed them specific material that fans, you know, their frenzy, or you are trying to drive your partisan narrative and you're trying to, you know, fool people into believing what is actually not the truth, rather than being a true news agency and putting out the facts and let people decide for themselves.
And again, I think everyone here on this panel saw this coming a long time ago, that, you know, when you start with this woke business, there is no end, no limit to it. Okay, we can all agree maybe you need to tear down some statues of Confederate generals, but then they start erecting statues of George Floyd in his place. And there's lots of questions about this. The other thing that Bill Maher talked about, Jack, is the whole Dave Chappelle issue, which again seems so ridiculous on its face, but here is Bill Maher on that.
And I don't think Dave Chappelle is transphobic. I mean, a lot of that special is talking about his opening act. Right. Who's trans? Okay? It's just like, can we take a breath? Maybe we are going too far.
I mean, this whole thing, Dave Chappelle is a comedian, and I'm always reminding people of that when you have this conversation. You know, comedy is supposed to be a little controversial, Jack, and you can disagree with Dave Chappelle and what he says, but you also have the opportunity to turn it off. We're not forced to watch Netflix. You have to subscribe to it. So, you know, what about Bill Maher's comments here?
I think they're spot on again. And, you know, Bill Maher reminds me of the old Democratic Party, the old Democrats that I grew up knowing. And when I thought of a Democrat, I thought of a perspective like Bill Maher, who would never take on these type of extremes. I mean, to think about it, I remember Eddie Murphy used to come out and he'd do Raw and all these other things, Richard Pryor. Imagine if they had to deal with this type of cancel culture. And those were obviously times that brought people together. People on both sides could laugh at a comedian. And so if we continue to get rid of the things that unite us, we're going to stay divided. And unfortunately, I do think that the left, the blue team really is trying to profit off of that division. And I think that's what you're seeing at the polls. That's what you're seeing in the new movements, and the people who are even on the left are tired of seeing it, like Bill Maher. So I applaud him for standing up against it. I think he made some valid points. And you saw Chris Cuomo wasn't reacting a lot. I mean,
right.
he didn't really come back and say that he disagreed with those statements.
But yeah, I think Chris Cuomo is on a little apology tour right now. Got to keep his head down and stay out of trouble. And not much he can say here on this front. But Bobby, Jack brings up a lot of good points. So does Patrice. We've gotten to this place in a country. And I do want to actually kind of distinguish a little bit on what Bill Maher says. I do think there's a difference between the red team and the blue team. When it comes to the red team, there's a desire to make sure this stuff stays out of schools, or you don't have suggestive commercials praising the transgender community on like the Disney Channel when kids might not really have the right context for understanding what that stuff means. Now, the red team wants to make sure that stuff doesn't happen. When it comes to the blue team, they cannot tolerate any kind of dissent whatsoever. They're not into debating. Right. They're not into the marketplace of ideas. It's their way or nothing.
Right, and that's what we've seen. We've seen that extreme nature in the media and outside. That point was what I was going to make, because, yeah, you have bias on the right. We're going to support our causes. But what we see on the left, and this transcends the media, this goes to college campuses, this goes to other meetings, where there is no debate. They will shout you down. They will cancel you. They will claim that conservative voice, conservative messaging is somehow violent, is somehow hurtful, that these people will be harmed just by hearing it. That's the extreme. And I think Bill Maher is speaking to that. He has reached a center in the American people where they say, you know what, the wokeism has gone too far. Enough is enough, because the left is out of control. Words do not hurt people. Dialogue, discussion, debate, that's needed, and we need it now.
More than ever, and I hope we can get back to a place where Bill Maher doesn't sound like the voice of reason or the outlier in this type of conversation. I mean, this is, or used to be, common sense. Hopefully we can get back there. I mean, I still kind of amazed sometimes that, like, we put this out there, and I'm guilty of this as anybody else, but this is what is exemplary these days. No, this should be the norm, not the exception to the rule. Great to see everyone. Look forward to our next conversation. Patrice, Leon Wuka, Jack Brewer, and Bobby, we appreciate it.
All right, friends, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button above. Once you do, tell your friends, share it, spread the word about the 13-minute news hour so we can keep growing. And for more great content, check out these videos right here, and I'll see you next time.